Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L coming in to talk about Hero Academia chapter. Where are we on this chapter? It's chapter 253. Great, excellent. Chapter 253 of My Hero Academia, and man, let me tell ya, it is a crazy chapter. Like holy crap moly, man! This is a chapter that transcends series right now. So here's what's up. Here's what we're gonna do. I want to talk specifically all about that final, like, what, 3 pages. I want to talk about it. It was great, but because that involves Vigilante's material, we're gonna leave that to the very end. So I'm gonna make the video easy enough for you guys to be able to say, like, well, I want to go read Vigilantes properly, so I won't listen to this part. We'll leave it at the end, so you can just leave the video at that. I'll probably be like at the 20-minute mark, probably, given how long these videos tend to go. And that'll be really cool. There's a lot to consider when it comes to Vigilantes there, because Vigilantes, if for those who don't know, they did a little bit of Aizawa's backstory in Vigilantes, and as it turns out, that guy's featured in it. So don't start theory crafting until you see Vigilantes, okay? Don't start doing it. Don't start doing it. Anyway, before we actually get into the insanity of talking about the Vigilantes material crossing over to this, let me set you up. If you want to read Vigilantes, the chapter you should start reading at for the Aizawa backstory is chapter 59 of Vigilantes. Unfortunately, it's not for free in Viz right now, but you know, support Viz. They have a great program going on. They have a great membership where they're doing the chapters usually 2 days after they illegally get out that we talk about. So really, the Shonen Jump investment has been the best investment in terms of watching and supporting manga. Sorry, reading and supporting manga. So feel free to do that. But yeah, it's chapter 59 of Vigilantes if you want to go check it out and check out the backstory. And then in regards to this story, before we actually get into the chapter proper, I do want to just play detective and talk about how the author set this up, because in how the author set this up, there's some things you can take away that I think would be really valuable for your reading experience of Hero Academia. So first off, I want to just remind everyone that this really all started, the first little bit of build-up that the author did towards this conclusion here occurred in chapter 216 of Hero Academia, specifically Class A versus Class B, that chapter. We had this panel of Shirakumo and Present Mike in that original chapter. And when this happened, my thoughts, and I said this in the chapter 216 video, was the author is setting this up. The author is going to have some kind of payoff happen from this particular flashback in the future. Now, mind you, there's a difference between saying that and saying that Shirakumo is going to be Kurogiri at the end of the chapter, right? Or is related to Kurogiri in some weird way. There's a big difference between those two things. But when you ultimately look at it, this was a case where you have to appreciate how crazy this got. Because when I initially saw that panel, I'm thinking, okay, there's going to be some kind of payoff. But then Vigilantes comes in and they start doing the Aizawa backstory. And I'm like, oh, that's really neat. That's why the author did it. He set it up because he wanted to, like, promote, or, you know, like, kind of play around with the Vigilantes storyline. Never did I think that that was going to come back into this story and affect us. Never did I think that he was going to bring that back up. Well, I thought maybe he'd make a mention to it, but I didn't think it would be like this catastrophic of a connection. So really, applause for the author. You have to appreciate how crazy this got. So it's pretty much and this kind of reminds me of the conversation we were having last week about rushing at the executive level. What occurred here is that the author effectively, maybe this is how the conversation went, told the author or the artist for Vigilantes, like, hey, I'm gonna be doing this storyline, introduce this character here. He had to have come in and told the other guy what to do and how to present the story. He must have also told him, you know, any kind of little details that might be important for figuring out the mystery. He went, told him this, and then the other guy went and drew this. This is something that was at least like maybe 6 months in planning. If I was to give it like a proper estimate, like 6 months in planning. You have to appreciate the level of talking that had to occur here and the level of planning that had to occur here to get the Vigilante storyline wrapped up in time for this revelation to come out. Like, really, applause. It's really cool when an author is able to use their spin-off materials in a way that progresses the material. And then you have to also appreciate that by doing this, the author got to do 2 storylines in the same timeline. In the same time that the Endeavor storyline was unfolding, he he was able to unfold the Aizawa storyline, and now he doesn't have to eat up time in the main Hero Academia manga. Now, mind you, it's going to be a waste of time if they do rehash the storyline from Vigilantes in the My Hero Academia manga. I think they'll be fine with just saying that, oh yeah, this is a guy from their past that died. That's all you need to know, and then if you want to know more, you can go to Vigilantes. I think it's a really cool move, and I wish more manga would do this, because this is just a better way of getting more content in a short amount of time. But it does remind you that it does seem like My Hero Academia is to some degree rushed. And so I really wonder what is causing the author to be so efficient with his movements here. What exactly is doing it? I don't know. But it's really cool. This is a really cool thing to occur. Really, this is one good way of also promoting Vigilantes. Good on the author. Good on the editorial staff, because they're probably the ones that also got involved here. No, but it's really cool. It's a really cool little thing that happened here. One thing I will say is that I don't think this is a plot twist that was planned from the very beginning. And if you were to say that it is, I would tell you, like, no, man, there's more evidence to the contrary. There's more evidence that this is something that came up, or that is relatively new in terms of the author's theory crafting, or, you know, planning out of his series. Like, it's very likely that he had the plot twist that Kurogiri was a dead man. You know, that it's very likely that that was the plot twist. But the connection to Aizawa, I don't think that was there from the very beginning. Just because, like, the author on record, we know he's a person who changes characters' trajectories based on popularity. Given that he does that, given that Aizawa is a popular character, you know, it's more reasonable to expect that this is something that came late in the game. But hey, props on him for making it work if it is something that came late in the game. You know, the inception of the idea itself, it doesn't matter when it happened as long as you make it work with your story. And the author makes it work. But there was something in the chapter that the author mentioned because he had to acknowledge it. I would like to call that like writer's guilt. He had to acknowledge it because he knew there was an elephant in the room. And when an author is thinking about what he has to acknowledge in a story, it points out that usually when that's happening, it's because it's a kind of wonky story point. And this happened a little bit in Shokugeki no Soma, where the author had to acknowledge the elephant in the room when it came to like the weirdness of what was going on. And really, like I said, in Shonen Jump, authors do that when they know that there's something they have to cover up. So keep that in mind. Anyway, how many minutes? We're 9 minutes in, but whatever, great time. We're gonna go into the chapter proper now, do the page-by-page analysis, and see what's going on in the chapter. I will tell you, I didn't realize that the chapter's title was Shirakumo, so I didn't know where we were going. So that was something. Sorry, I got a message. All right, continuing. Okay. So, first page is an establishing page. Our winter break flew by in a flash and our classes resumed again. Before we even realized there were only 3 months left. So this was pretty interesting because I didn't conceptualize that we would be back in the class so quickly. That was really interesting. That first page, the first 2/3 of the page, really interesting that the author chose to show off the UA environment. That was really interesting. Not very often that we see the UA environment. And honestly, when I saw the stadium, I'm thinking, oh man, sports festival. It'd be cool if we go back there again. But anyway, what we know from Endeavor, we know that the kids are still working, that the internships are still on, because Endeavor was saying like, hey, you guys can come back during your school time because we need to continue training. So I think that the Endeavor is still willing to do that. So that's good for me here. And then the final third of the page is Iida's introduction. Now, it was really interesting how the author focused on Iida for that first bit, because Iida also has the color page in preparation for the movie. That was pretty cool. That was pretty cool. Oh, also we're doing a Gemini's box. Anyway, we move into page 4, and page 4, well, pretty much it's Iida just setting us up for figuring out what happened during the kids' internships. Now, what's unfortunate here is really, we didn't get to see what the other kids did. It's unfortunate. They're a black box. Now they can come up with anything and say, oh yeah, we got this in an internship. Really unfortunate. Again, this is one of those things that makes you feel, oh, this is kind of rushed. You know, like when the author doesn't have time to properly show off all the other characters, it makes you feel like, oh man, what's going on, author? Why can't you show us what the other kids are doing? Are they not strong enough to carry the story? At the very least, Ochako. It would have been cool to see what she got. Like even half a chapter would be fine. But it's unfortunate. It's just the nature of the game. Unfortunate that we don't get to see proper detailing of it. I'm sure that they had to make hard decisions here. Page 4, like I said, is a transitionary page where kids just start moving to the other room, and Iida just tells us, or he starts telling up that him and Manuel, they worked out and they made Iida more flexible and all kinds of stuff. Really, slice of life pages. When you look at those first couple pages, it's slice of life. While also setting up that Aizawa is going to have some kind of emotional investment happening in a chapter. Anyway, page 5 is transitionary, and we go into the girls. What were the girls doing? So I found this really interesting. Again, slice of life is always fun. It's really interesting to find out what Ochako did and what she's got going on with her costume. Like, there is a wire inside so she can nullify the weight with her quirk. That's really interesting. I want to know how that works. Like, that's so interesting. Like, it's really cool that the author went in to give us these extra little details about Ochako's devices here. Anyway, the best part of all of this is that in page 5, we have Mina touching things and something falls out. So by page 6, we have an excellent Mina page. Let me just tell you, man, I really love that page. And one thing that I gotta tell you guys, I really love what the author's been doing with Mina. So, you know, sometimes there's tricks to how the author gets character moments out of characters. For Tsuyu, the author put her with Ochako so that Tsuyu was guaranteed to have screen time. Mina, however, you know, we know the gimmick. Mina has a very significant gimmick with Ochako. That is, Mina's the one that's always going down and questioning Ochako about her liking Izuku. So of course, this panel of Mina is beautiful. I absolutely love it. I love how the author did this. This was greatly executed. I really appreciated that. Good job, author. No, but it is really funny, right? It is really funny to see her thinking about this. But I will tell you guys one thing. I was watching the Hero Academia anime recently, and I just thought that something was weird with Mina's behavior. To some degree, I do wonder if there's the possibility that Mina is the traitor. Now, mind you, this is like turn on conspiracy, like put on some tinfoil hats. Maybe Mina is the traitor, just because Mina's really inquisitive and she's touching everyone's stuff. Like, recently, I've just come around to thinking about it more. Like, here's a fact: Mina is indirectly responsible for a hero being killed by All For One, or not killed, but maybe captured. Gigantomachia, the author said, was when All For One was inactive, Gigantomachia was the one that was collecting heroes. Gigantomachia was looking for a guy with a spring quirk. Mina came up, told him to go to that office down the road or something. And as it turns out, All For One had a quirk that involved springs. So, conclusion: Mina directed Gigantomachia to the hero that he probably then kidnapped. It's just a funny little tragedy that occurred there during the Kirishima flashback. It's just a fun theory. Anyway, back to this chapter. It's just really cool. I really appreciated it. I think this was great. I think this was a great way of setting that up, and I think it's really cute that Ochako has it. And that leads me into page 7, which is just the most beautiful panel of Ochako I have ever seen. Look, man, when she's saying that she'll put that away, the author put effort into that picture, man. That is the most beautiful panel of that girl that I've ever seen. And when I see that panel, you know what I'm thinking? Tragedy. I'm just expecting hardcore tragedy. That seems like the kind of panel that occurs 5 chapters before a really sad thing happens. Man, that seems like tragedy coming. And I can't wait. But again, the artistry on that, like both on the Mina page and the Ochako page, you gotta appreciate it, man. It was so good. Like, it looked really good. Anyway, on page 7, the bottom half, we have Izuku contrasted against Ochako. They're talking about it. That was a really good transition on the author's part. Anyway, they're just getting information from Izuku. Really, there's nothing of value in that bottom half because, again, transitionary pages don't usually have much value other than set up the scene. And then we go into page 8 where the humor stays on point with Izuku talking about how strong his thing is and Bakugo throwing his bandana. Man, that's so funny. Man, look, I was so confused as to what was going on because I missed that Izuku got impaled by that thing. But it was just great. Bakugo calling him disgusting, and then Sugar Man coming in and saying that gray matter was oozing out. Like, how deep did that go? Holy crap moly. No, but the author was, again, really on point with the humor on this one. That was just a great segment. I wonder why Bakugo threw that thing at Izuku. Maybe it's because Izuku was getting too, like, just big up on himself. Maybe Izuku was just getting too egotistical and Bakugo wasn't enjoying it at all. But yeah, no, that was really violent. Anyway, on the bottom panel, Izuku's talking about his body having to adapt to using it, how it throws off his sense of speed. Now, honestly, when I'm reading that part, I'm not sure if he was referring to the thing that's sticking in his brain. But let's assume he's talking about the thing that he's talking about, Black Whip. I'm actually really happy that he's bringing up speed, because if he's talking about speed in regards to Black Whip, like, remember, like, the last time we saw him using Black Whip on the cars, I pointed out, like, well, this kind of seems weird. If Black Whip is throwing off his sense of speed because of, there could be pull action happening on Black Whip itself. Like, Black Whip could be pulling things towards Izuku while he's also moving around. I'm really happy that he's bringing up the weirdness in the speed as he's using Black Whip. That said, he could also be talking about the thing sticking in his head, but I don't think he is. But that's the Jaimini's box translation. I might need to read a few more translations just to make sure. Anyway, by page 9, we are going into an All Might joke. He's making cotton candy, and then this is the setup. This page is pretty much just a gag page and a setup page that says, okay, Aizawa's not here. So at this point in time, I'm thinking, oh, Aizawa's getting involved? What's going on with Aizawa? And then you go into page 10, and page 10 is tense. You have the author doing the close-up on Aizawa's finger, like he's really anxious. You have President Mike telling him to shut up. Of all people, President Mike telling him to shut up. That's pretty intense. And then you have them setting up that they're talking about something they fought at USJ. Yeah, man. Like, honestly, Jaimini's box, they themselves were kind of vague about it, but I think Manga Stream was a bit more direct. Regardless, that was a pretty intense page, and that told us, like, something was happening. When I was reading this page on J-Box, it was like, oh, are they talking about Nomus? Like, what are they talking about? Like, I was really confused where they were going with this. Anyway, you go into page 11, and it's still such a tense situation. I think the author did a really good job here, having Aizawa be so pissed off, and then having, well, President Mike of all people telling him to be quiet. Anyway, at that point, page 11, we had President Mike saying that it could be a big misunderstanding, and Sukachi. So the moment Sukachi gets involved there, it's like, oh, are they going to Tartarus? And then sure enough, they are going to Tartarus. So by that point, you could understand, okay, this is probably having something to do with All For One or any of his other people who are in there. And for me, when I was reading that, I was like, are they going to go talk to All For One? This is how far the whole thing was in my head. Like, I never would have thought. Anyway, by page 12, we're talking about the Nomus. And this was really interesting because I think they gave us more information here. That they're telling us the Nomus, their bodies are a complete mess. And this extends to both their bodies and their hearts. And ultimately, they talk that the Momus are just puppets without a soul and marionettes without a soul. So pretty good setup there. And but this threw me off too, because it seems that by the end of the chapter, they're trying to say that Kurogiri is a Nomu. And honestly, by all metrics, he probably is a Nomu technically, because he has multiple quirks infused into him. But it's the kind of thing where it's like, by this point in the chapter, I was just thinking, are they going to go talk to a Nomu? Like, what is going on? And then we have page 13, which is really the Wham page, where Gran Torino goes on the contrary, and then you have Aizawa talking there. And at that point, the moment that you have Aizawa coming in there, that's where I make the connection. Oh, dear God. This is having something to do with Aizawa's backstory. And I'm getting really excited by this page. And then especially when Sukachi comes in and says that things have an order to them, and they talk about the guy at the center. Yeah, like, honestly, the build-up, the author did a really good job making it vague, and also making it a tense situation by using characters' general demeanors and contrasting them against what they had in this chapter. Honestly, really good work on the author's part. I think he did really well with this chapter in general, especially when it came to those things. Okay, so page 14 is now the first page that we have to, like, slow down and break down, because page 14 is the one that gives us all the information. First panel. If we could somehow get him to talk, we could get straight to the heart of the issue. He hasn't given us a single piece of useful information. Okay, first bit of information there. Now that we know what is at the end of the chapter, the first thing you have to take away from there is that him saying that particular line informs us why they brought Aizawa. They brought Aizawa there most likely because they're planning on trying and getting something out of Kurogiri. They're most likely trying to see if Aizawa's connection with him in the past can get them some information. So that's the first thing. That informs you as to why they brought him here. They want information. The second panel, he'll talk about a tons of useless stuff, but not a word about anything we could use against the League. When it comes to the League, he'll suddenly become unresponsive, like his power's been cut or something. I think Manga Stream said like his strings have been cut. Now, the important one there is the second blurb, where they talk about him becoming unresponsive. That's absolutely important because that's the panel that's telling you there is some kind of inhuman behavior going on here. Especially with the author saying like his power's been cut or something along those lines. That's the author giving the reader that specific detail. That's a key detail you got to keep in mind there, and that is what connects us between the Nomu idea and the Kurogiri idea. That's the connecting line. That little weird quirk in his behavior. So when you read that line, for me, it makes me think like this is an if-else statement. If you're talking programming, it's pretty much like this guy's mind is bound by specific rules, and that does add to the inhuman aspect of the Nomus and the Nomu nature that is going on here. That's the line that connects us to the Nomus are marionettes type thing that they were talking about in the previous page. Anyway, the third set of panels, they are transitionary. The interesting one there is it's quite complex, so it took us a while to notice. And then we go into the setup. In his case, multiple factors have been combined to form a new single quirk, and at the root of all those factors is, and we'll come back to this, but you know, they pointed out that it is Shirakumo's quirk factor at the base. So here is a really interesting little thing that occurred here. So in this case, you have to appreciate what had to go into the Kurogiri. Like, this wasn't something that you could easily predict. So the author did a lot to like throw people off here. You know, bringing up that there were multiple factors that made one new quirk. You know, we know that All For One can mutate quirks by jamming them together, but this is quite a lot. So in this first bit, we know that he has multiple factors, but we also know that not many people are actually able to survive having multiple factors inserted into them. But here we have it. Shirakumo's baseline was here, and well, for all intents and purposes, Kurogiri, he has so many quirks jammed into him, and he's one of the successful ones. You know, we'll talk about the implications of that in just a little bit. But anyway, the final page is the one that tells you, okay, Shirakumo's dead, so keep that in mind. Shirakumo's dead. It won't be any spoilers for anyone. And then we also have, finally, it bears an incredible resemblance to the man once known as Shirakumo Oboro. Okay, so where do you even begin on this thing? Ultimately, you know, when they say that it's the root, when Shirakumo's quirk factor is at the root of all those factors, what that sounds like to me is that Kurogiri's body is Shirakumo's body. That's what it sounds like to me. It sounds like to me they're using that guy's body, and then they added quirks on top of it. But when we go down that path line, there's just so many things that come up. There's so many things to account for here. Like, first off, we can account for the guy's mind. You know, Shirakumo is dead. Like, how did this work? Right now, we know that All For One can cheat death, but it's kind of weird to think that he can cheat the death of other people. Mind you, the Doctor is capable of so much. He has Nomus in a tank. Like, this is crazy. One thing I want to point out, since we're talking about his mind, when you go back to page 10, and specifically when they were talking about that thing we fought at USJ, that kind of behavior, not in the least, that's pretty much like on Manga Stream. They had the same. On Manga Stream, when we fought at USJ, his behavior wasn't the slightest bit similar. So they're talking about the behavior because the author had to address that, because when we had Kurogiri interacting with Aizawa in that first bit in USJ, you know, there wasn't really any significant connection. They had to address that. But what that tells you is that maybe Kurogiri's mind isn't Shirakumo's, right? Like, this guy was legitimately dead. There is no reason to believe that that guy's mind maintained across whatever process created Kurogiri. So when it comes to Kurogiri's mind here, I really think that right now my biggest thing that I'm guessing is that they took the body and they used the body because they found something suitable with the body. That would be my first initial guess if we were talking about things that are just in the Hero Academia manga. But there's a few more details that pop up from Vigilantes that I think are worth talking about. So at that point, I think let's cut it there for the Hero Academia talk. The rest of the talk is going to involve Vigilantes. So if you don't want to be spoiled on Vigilantes, you know, go read the chapters, come back and watch this part. We're not going to start talking about Vigilantes. For everyone that was here, thanks so much for watching, and we're going to continue on. So moving into the Vigilantes portion of this. So I'll give everyone just a quick rundown for anyone that missed out on Vigilantes and still wants to read, or still just wants to know what's going on. Aizawa had a friend. He was a guy that had a quirk. His quirk produced clouds. The clouds were able to be touched and he could ride on them. So that was his, it was a quirk, it was a cloud propagation quirk. It was a creation quirk. It wasn't a teleportation quirk. But now when you have the author saying that multiple quirk factors were combined to create a new quirk, you know, okay. You could see the aspects of that power in Kurogiri. Since Kurogiri is able to produce black mist, you can see, well, okay, you could see how the clouds there, like the clouds probably got turned into the quirk, into the propagation factor. Anyway, in Vigilantes, Shirakumo was hit by a block on his head. And so we have this panel of pretty much Aizawa seeing his dead body. People already covered the body up with a tarp. That kid was dead the moment that the thing landed on his head. There was no way here. So when you consider that the rescue workers had covered him up and hid him so people couldn't see the dead body, you know, that tells you, like, okay, he was legitimately dead. What it looks like here is that knowing that the doctor's a factor, you know, they probably took this guy's body to the morgue and maybe they just stole the body. It's really weird. This is a really weird thing. It's also possible that maybe instead of stealing the body, they just stole the quirk from the body. The reality is that the wording that they use here to describe the situation with Kurogiri is really vague. Like, they're talking about the quirk factor that is at the root of all those factors. How did they know about the quirk factors? Did they test this guy's blood? Like, what is going on here? Like, actually, how did they test the quirk factors? It's really vague. Like, I need more information to understand. Are we talking about the body of Shirakumo, or are they talking about just the quirk factor of Shirakumo? Right now, you know, I'm leaning towards just the quirk factor, but we have to be ready for anything. Regardless, the doctor has the means to do some grave robbing. If you told me that the doctor was a grave robber, I wouldn't say no, because that's like, yeah, no, most likely he is. Now, in the terms of the mind, it's very possible that Kurogiri just has a very basic mind. But there are some things that make the situation a little bit more murky when it comes to Vigilantes. In Vigilantes, during Aizawa's fight with a villain, he was sure that his buddy was still alive because he kept hearing his buddy's voice. Now, the thing is with Shirakumo is that his power reminds me a lot of Dragon Ball, and I think his costume also like kind of reminds me of like Journey to the West or something like that. The fact is, the clouds he rides on, they look like the Nimbus cloud. And you know what else looks like clouds that appears in Japanese mythology? Spirits. You know, if you go to One Piece and you see Brook in One Piece, his stuff, like he was in the form of a cloud at one point. Spirits come in the form of clouds. So what I'm thinking here is that if we're talking about the most extreme possibility, maybe Shirakumo had an aspect of his quirk that let his consciousness travel around in clouds. Maybe. It really depends. I don't know what the author wants to do here, because right now the setup is saying that there is some Shirakumo still inside of Kurogiri, where you could say like, well, you know, maybe Shirakumo's personality can exist outside of his body's death. Maybe he can exist after death, and that's how this is all working out. It's really a weird situation here. There's a lot of things going on with how this could work out to give us some kind of resolution in the narrative. And of course, I'm saying the names a lot, but I do want to point out, like, Kurogiri, Shirakumo. It's actually pretty interesting that the names are so similar, because like they have the same naming convention. That's pretty like interesting. And the the hairstyle. I think now when you look at the hairstyle of this guy and you look at Kurogiri's wisp, it's like the author was trying to do little tricks to make you think, like to make you see a connection from ahead of time. But like the author had to bring up so much. He had to introduce so many new things to make this work. Like you're using a dead man, and it's like, what? That's the part that would have thrown most people off. The fact that they're using a dead man. So that's my big question going forward. I want to know if they are using Shirakumo's body as Kurogiri's base. I want to know exactly how did All For One manage that. I want to know if they actually did some grave robbing. There's a lot of questions that we need to get sorted here. Was Shirakumo legitimately dead, or did All For One know something about his quirk? Did he know about some kind of aspect that they were able to keep some aspect of Shirakumo here? If Shirakumo was dead and they are using that body as the base for Kurogiri, it's very possible that Shirakumo's brain maintains some of the memories, some of the aspects of Shirakumo in there. There's a lot of weird things going on. I'm very excited. I have not come up with enough theories, but I want to hear your theories, guys. If you have any theories, let me know down below. But yeah, those are the big things you need to know about Shirakumo. He had a moment in Vigilantes where it seemed like he was still there even though he had died. His quirk allowed him to propagate and create clouds that he could ride on. He has, I think, mythological influences in his design that make me think that, some kind of paranormal aspect may be involved here. But right now, yeah, it's the Aizawa hour. We went from the Endeavor to Aizawa. And I guess I didn't talk about this at the beginning of the video, but it's also important to note that we are now done with the Endeavor plotline. So it seems like now we're going to the Aizawa plotline. I have no real other things to say for the Endeavor plotline. Like I said in the last chapter, Fuyumi was pretty much, we could leave her alone for now because she had a good enough end for her involvement. But it is actually really interesting to see how harsh of a transition the author did from Endeavor to the Aizawa plotline. Another thing that we can say is that we have 3 months till the end of the first year. Honestly, it looks like the UA siege is going to happen, because it was really interesting that the author brought up the fact that, hey, we're going into we're 3 months away here. Anyway, lots of cool things popping up in Hero Academia. I'm really just floored by the Kurogiri reveal. Guys, let me know what you thought down below, and till next time, I hope you have an absolutely great day. And if I have any more ideas, I'll come up with a second video and post it, and you guys can check it out. Anyway, till next time.